Okay, this one today is a little bit unique, a little bit different. I think you're gonna like it. Using this as a map, I don't even know the right terminology to describe, but our consciousness, our awareness changes throughout the day, right? We don't just wake up and it's the exact same for the full cycle. Our sort of focus or awareness expands as the day goes on. And I'm going to show you here. So you're going to see. So the first sort of part of the day when you wake up, our self-cultivation and intention. Remember the other maps. This is the time where we do self-cultivation. It's time we set intention. So our main focus should be within sort of the hour or the 2-hour window, whatever, the time period that we are focusing on. Here, if we're doing our Qigong practice or calisthenics, whatever we're doing, or meditation, it's not a time to think, what do I have to do? What are my meetings? What are my responsibilities for the rest of the day? The focus is on within just the period of the time that you're doing, the present moment activity. Especially if it's pre-sunrise, it's really easy to just compartmentalize and focus only on that, knowing that at the next phase, we're going to move into thinking more about the day, right? So in the beginning, it's just the hour or 2-hour cycle, the period that we're in. And so if our mind starts to wander and think thoughts outside of only what we're doing within our intention and self-cultivation, bring it back to this chart. Now then, as the sun starts to come up, wherever it is in the day, we eat breakfast, our digestive system is active, if we're getting our family ready or it's just ourselves or whatever, that's the time we're sort of taking a shower, eating breakfast, planning, getting stuff ready for the day, right? So this is the time where we start to plan and prepare and lay out what we are doing that day or the things we need that day or just getting ready for the day. But again, so this part is critical that we are focusing our intention and self-cultivation only on within that hour or two, the period we're doing it. Then our vision, right? Vision, so intention, vision, our vision now as the sun comes up is more eating breakfast, getting ready for the day, planning ahead for the day, right? It's very, very natural and makes a lot of sense. Then its next evolution is the week, right? So as we move more into sort of going into work and we've done all the things we need to do, the sun is starting to get up, and we're going to this action stage that we talked about, action. Action is focused on sort of the next steps or project for that week a lot of times, right? What am I working on this week? What day of the week is it? What projects do I need to do? What work, it's you get to work and you kind of know where you are within the days of the week, right? Breakfast probably doesn't matter as much. You're getting yourself ready for the day, and those are varied. But here you're saying, okay, I'm working on this for this week. I've got my 5, my 7 days, whatever, for the week that I'm working on. Then as we move into sort of the peak later part of the work, we might think projects. So this also is working on your business, and this is working in your business a lot of times if you have that choice, right? So as we work on our business, we can work sort of within the compass of what am I doing this week? What needs to be taken care of? How am I organizing my week? And those are steps and projects that we work on. Then as we get into this, we're working our expansion of awareness. Our thought process becomes more about the month, or in our process, we call it the 3-week cycle because we have 3-week cycles for a season. So you can see sort of in the morning, our focus is centered around only that. And we don't need to think about this yet because it already has allocation built into it. Then as we sort of move from that into sort of this afternoon training session or times with relationships, we move more into sort of the mindset of the season, right? So let me just talk about our day polls and our working out. That's pretty easy to check in, right? So in work, we might focus on here, right? Working on our business for the week, then working in our business. What are we working on? What's our project for the month? We're working on a larger scale, so our scale grows. Then as we get sort of this afternoon, we might go and say, okay, I'm doing a 9-week training program and I'm in which week am I in? And this is the season. And so your focus is more about the season. Like you're focused on, okay, I have these 9 weeks. Where am I within that? What am I working on? Right? And so your scale expands. Then as we move into sort of this, we call this, right, creativity, right, in container, we're starting to think about a larger viewpoint. As we're talking, having dinner, we're just more relaxed. We're not as focused. We're not as critical as we were earlier. So our scope, our scale and scope expand, and we start to think and talk about, what do I want to do this year? Maybe 6 months from now, we're going to go visit our family, and maybe at the end of summer, we're going to go on vacation. So you start to plan within sort of you start to think and plan within the year. And then as our sort of transition from that closer to bedtime is, remember we said travel, friendships, things like that. So we can start to think about fun ways, think about like 10 years. It's a 10-year cycle, right? So what do I want to be in 10 years? What do I want to be working on? Where do I want to be going on trips? What are things I'd like to, what's my bucket list for this 10-year period, right? So you can see this sort of expands. And normally we're going to bed in this window, but sometimes if we're up late, we wake up in the middle of the night, we're young and we're still up. This last one, so again, if we're, ideally we're sort of sleeping in here anyways, but if we wake up, we have to be up, we're wake up by whatever reason, or we're still up, we're young and we're still up, our natural expansive scope of thinking tends to drift to the beyond. It's like this lifetime, you start to think, what do I want to do? Is this, you start to have existential thoughts. And maybe even beyond, it's what happens after this life. You start to, these are deep thoughts at a deep time, right? And you're usually not having those deep thoughts in this time at work. You're not really worried at 9 or 10 or 11 a.m., usually about the beyond and your existential ability, right? But we tend to almost always have those existential crises and thoughts or interests this time of day, right? So this is the ideal way to leverage or understand your focus or awareness on what you're thinking about in terms of scales, right? So again, this first part, when we wake up, we're doing intention and self-cultivation, and our thinking needs to be just on the hour, just the time period we're in, the hour or two, just the focus of what we're doing. Whenever our mind jumps to these, which it will, anything that fits in these categories, it already has a place. So if we're worried about that project for that day, or getting everybody ready in the morning, or what project am I working on, or a larger project, or especially these are usually ones that jump in your mind the most. You can say, you think about it, take a step back, and just fall back into your practice and say, it's taken care of later. It has a time. It has a time. It has a time, right? That's critical. So you can focus on your self-cultivation and intention, thereby enacting and taking care of all your own needs, putting you in the best physiological state to be able to now take on that thought when the right time arises. So it expands, right, from small fraction of the hour, 2 hours, to the larger fraction of the vision in your day, then sort of the action of the week, projects, just a little, what am I working on today, next action, next action, next action. Then larger, even again, the month, or for us it's a 3-week cycle, sort of a bigger scale. What project am I working on that needs to be done 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a month from now? Then it's where we move into our relationships and our sort of our training. We could think a whole season. What do I want to work on? If it's fall, winter, spring, summer. These are seasons that are about 9 weeks long that we can have a larger thinking, planning activities towards, and periodization of our own training towards. It's so easy to think about. again, then we get sort of the dinner time. We can literally talk about the whole year, the big expansiveness of what do we want to do this year. It's just fun talk, right? It's just fun stuff. Then sort of as we get towards that closer to dark and bedtime, fun to think about 10 years, who I want to be, where do I want to go, what do I work on. These are all of our category 1 and 2s that we've already sort of talked about, or we'll talk about with our vision and our why. Our why matches this. And then again, if we wake up in the middle of the night or we're up late, we tend to think of our existential way of thinking beyond we think of our entire life or beyond our life, and we start to have those deeper thoughts, right? So these all have a natural dropping in place. Again, like sleep here, please. sleep. But those are sort of where they are. So think of it as a scale. And it's easiest, most productive, and best to think about those things in those correct times. Your mind might pop them up anytime, of course, but you can sort of shuffle or send them in your mind like a file folder. Just say, okay, I'm going to think about that. And the more often you do that, the easier it is. And then when it gets to that time, it will just pop right up, right? So use this as a way to sort of help corral your mind and organize it, because all things are taken care of. Nothing is not thought about on the micro or the macro scale, and it flows from small to medium to big to large to beyond. So this is a real powerful chart. Take some time to focus on it and think about it, but it has huge payoffs in the way that your mind is allowed to handle the day, and that's the point.